Coming up on the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast, Blockbuster news as the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the IndyCar Series are sold to Penske. We learn what it means from Hulman and Company's CEO and our own Bill Benner. We talk to another Tech Culture Award winner. A Hoosier organization looks to teach life skills to people with disabilities. We spotlight a summer construction camp, and our panel of insiders takes on the top stories of the week. Welcome to the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. I'm Andy Ober. The chairman of Indy-based Hulman and Company says the decision to sell is, quote, bittersweet, but very exciting. Penske Entertainment Corporation is acquiring the company and its subsidiaries. Mark Miles joins Inside Indiana Business host Gary Dick to talk about the massive deal.
Big week, to put it mildly. And this deal came together pretty quickly, about 6 weeks, and it's kind of started with a dinner at the Columbia Club in downtown Indy.
In the end, that's right. This last chapter, the definitive chapter, started 6 weeks ago. But, you know, the board and the family had been thinking about strategic opportunities for growth really for many years. Eventually, the focus was on the possibility of a sale. And there were a number of interested parties, terrific companies that could transact. But 6 weeks ago, Tony called Roger and we sat down and he signed an NDA that night on a Thursday night. On Saturday, we were in Michigan with our CFO, Cindy Lucchese, and his team and him. And they'd already digested unbelievable quantities of data about the company. Yeah. He obviously knew all the history and all that it stands for, but from that moment, that Saturday, till the announcement, it was 24/7, and I mean it. There wasn't a lot of sleep involved, not very many people to keep it under wraps.
How did you keep it under wraps? I mean, it's amazing in this 24/7 media era. How did you keep it under wraps?
I'll answer your question, but the fun thing for me, the morning after the announcement, with Roger, we went to Charlie Brown's Diner on Main Street of Speedway.
Yeah, legendary place,
Unbelievable place. And Liz, the owner, came up and she said, you know, I didn't know. I was completely surprised. I had no idea. And if I didn't know, nobody knew. So, that happened. There weren't very many people involved. Yeah. So the deal making, the due diligence, and the negotiating of the agreements, the development of the agreements, were mostly done in-house. In our case, we were represented locally by Ice Miller, and Mike Milken there did a phenomenal job. So we just didn't let many people know, and we didn't, I mean, there were about 4 people at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway that knew about this until we got ready to announce it.
Speaking of small numbers, there's got to be a small number of individuals or groups who would qualify for this kind of a deal. And I've talked to a number of people. I tend to concur that Roger Penske would seem to be that perfect fit from a business standpoint, a motorsports standpoint, what he's accomplished, vision, all those types of indicators.
At one level, there are sovereign funds around the world that would, that I know were interested, and then there were other, very major entities that were engaged. But Roger's the perfect conclusion because he's got, he's poured more of his life into the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and IndyCar than anybody except the George family. He knows all the history, he's part of all of it for at least 5 decades. And that's the racing side, nothing to learn there. On the business side, it's unbelievable the businesses that he's built and the organizations that he's built. And so he is uniquely, perfectly suited for this.
Given that and the time you've spent with him, not only pre the deal, but after the announcement, you spent a considerable time. What's your take? People are wondering, what is this going to mean for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, for racing, for community development around the Speedway, all those types of things? What's your gut feel right now based on your conversations with Roger Penske?
Well, it's all good. We're no longer terribly resource constrained. So I know a lot of people just assume if somebody writes a check like this, that they must know exactly what they want to do with it. That's really never the case. We've taken 6 weeks to figure out what it is and how to make an arrangement, which gives Roger and the organization, us working with them, the opportunity to say specifically what we'll do. But everything is going to be looked at. And as you referred, we spent 4.5 hours Tuesday with him up and down the stairs and the closets and the restrooms, looking at every part of
So you told me you took him to places he'd never been at the Indianapolis Motor.
Yeah, well, he's a competitor.
That's amazing, yeah.
And to all of a sudden see what it looks like over on Georgetown Road, which he'd never go to, right? And all these other aspects. It was exciting to watch his reactions.
Mark Miles, the CEO at Hulman and Company. Fascinating inside information on this deal. Appreciate you being here. As always, look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks, Gary.
All right.
Still to come, we look at Formstack's growth over the last decade plus and spotlight an organization teaching life skills to people with disabilities. But first, after the Blockbuster sale of the Speedway and IndyCar, Roger Penske says his goal is to find out how to grow the series and the venue in years to come. He says he wants to serve as a support tool for the iconic institutions. Sports contributor Bill Benner talked with Gary Dick about what's next.
Bill has covered the Speedway and sports in Indianapolis and Indiana for a long time. So you've got some, I think, unique perspective. Bill, when you heard the news, what was your initial thought that this was happening?
Like so many, I was stunned, but I was also stunningly pleased because Roger Penske is the perfect fit in every way that you can measure. Not only his wealth, but his business acumen and certainly his passion and love for auto racing in general and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in particular. This was as good as it could possibly be.
And as we were just talking off camera, there's the Indianapolis Motor Speedway piece. There's also the IndyCar Series, and there's obviously a connection there. And you believe there really needs to be that effort to continue to build the IndyCar Series.
Yeah, with the new NBC agreement and the rising ratings, but they still have a lot of racetracks with empty seats. And so as much as they can continue to grow and promote that series via the NBC partnership, but also put people in the seats, I think that's really going to be vital to the and Roger Penske, again, he has the acumen, he has the passion, and he has the investment opportunities to really forward that effort.
This had to be a tough decision for Tony George, who was emotional at the announcement. You'll talk about that because Tony and the family have made a lot of improvements over the last 10 to 20 years at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It really changed the face of that place.
No question. And remember, he was the one that brought in NASCAR, and I think that was even though the Brickyard has struggled, I think that was an important move. He brought in remodeled the Speedway for Formula One. He's done many things, the safer barriers, just from a very practical standpoint. That was at the impetus of Tony George. That was as good as I've ever seen Tony in a public setting. He said the right things, he conveyed the right emotions, and I was very, very impressed with the way he comported himself at that press conference.
And he made the statement that the Hulman George family's taken things basically as far as they can take them now, and there needs to be some new, for lack of a better term, new blood, new infusion to take it to the next
there needs to be additional capital.
Yeah.
And again, Roger Penske comes with an incredible amount of capital that he will bring to it. The other thing, Gary, that always struck me funny in the aftermath was people saying, well, is he going to have some kind of unfair advantage? Well, you know what? He already has an unfair advantage. Why? Because he's Roger Penske and he thinks of every single thing. Gary, this was I don't know whether this is bigger than the Colts coming to Indianapolis back in the day, but that certainly is a great thing for our beloved Indianapolis Motor Speedway and everything that goes along with that.
As big a story, the Colts certainly one of them, as big a story as I've seen in this community in the 35-6 years I've been in town, for sure. I have to ask you too, don't know yet, he just is making the purchase now, expected to close in January. What do you think it means for the area outside of the Speedway, the community, the town of Speedway? Done some incredible things there in terms of their downtown, but development, it's 1,000 acres there, and that potential for development and this entertainment prospect as well.
You have that entire area where the old Speedway Shopping Center is, across on the south side of 16th Street. I hope that the golf course remains. The Brickyard golf course that Pete Dye designed is iconic. And I think, again, you're looking at entertainment and event possibilities. I think the golf course could play an important part of that.
Bill Benner, thanks as always for
Gary.
some great perspective. We'll see you a little bit later in the show.
Got it. Thank you.
All right.
Later in the podcast, giving Hoosiers with disabilities the skills they need, and we introduce you to a summer construction camp. But now, Formstack began in 2006 as one guy developing a data capture solution. It's now a remote-first company with employees all over the world and the winner of PowderKeg's top-rated Workplace Tech Culture Award. Vice President of Human Resources Miranda Nicholson came in studio to talk about the company's growth.
FormStack, again, has been around for, 13 years or so,
Yeah.
I guess here. A company that has achieved a lot of success. Give us the business model, what FormStack is all about.
Sure. So we like to say that we're a workplace productivity tool. So our growth in the last few years has been fueled by things that help workplaces become more productive. We like to say... I'm on the spot. Oh,
yeah,
no.
But I mean, and that's about efficiency in the workplace.
Yeah.
And a FormStack, and we've had a number of folks on from the company over the past number of years. What has, as you look at the growth, acquisitions, a lot of that growth has come through acquisition. Talk about that, because 5 acquisitions in two and a half years is substantial.
Yeah, we've decided to look at companies that work well with our core product, which is an online software as a service business, form builder. So we looked at e-signatures, we looked at surveys, we looked at ways to sync your data with other services that you may use. And all of those things kind of snap together, make business quicker. They cut out the communication that sometimes back and forth is needed that slows things down.
5 acquisitions, that has helped boost your employee account. 220 employees, that's a pretty big number.
Yeah, it is. We've grown about 100% through mergers and acquisitions, and also through organic hiring, both in Indy and remote. And so my department's been very busy. The rest of the organization too, but yeah.
And as you look at that, the 220 people, a substantial number of those work remotely, and I think that's a big part of your culture, right?
It is. It's certainly attractive. I think in this day and age, people want to work where they're most productive, and oftentimes that's at home. And for us, we've, over the last, I would say, 6 or 7 years, have gotten really good at understanding what it takes to be successful in that remote environment.
And as you look at culture, the culture focus really is focused on 2 things, 2 tenets. Results and relationships matter, both equally important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say we put a hard emphasis on relationships in a remote environment. It's often taken for granted. You don't sit right next to someone, you don't see them passing by you in the hallway, but you have to work with them every single day. So we provide a lot of opportunities for people to build relationships, both through meetups once a year as a whole company, and then team-specific meetups once a year. That's 2 separate times. And then every day, I always say you need to be camera ready from the waist up.
Yeah. And very quickly, you're always hiring, is what you just said, right?
Always hiring anywhere. So our website has all of our listings on there, and anything from sales to engineering to marketing position. All
right, very good. Miranda Nicholson from FormStack, a winner at Powder Kegs Culture Awards, headquarters in Fishers, downtown, the new downtown Fishers, offices in Colorado Springs as well. Miranda, as always, thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Remember, you can catch Inside Indiana Business Television on stations throughout the state every weekend. Head to InsideIndianaBusiness.com to check listings. Still to come, you can spend next summer learning a trade firsthand, and we return to the Speedway to talk autonomous vehicles. But first, Janus Developmental Services in Central Indiana aims to teach life skills to people with disabilities. The organization says its programming promotes confidence in its clients and helps those with disabilities be more independent and contribute to the community. President and CEO Christina Sorensen spoke with Kylie Valletta in the Business of Health.
First of all, happy anniversary.
Thank you.
40 years. So you're based in Noblesville, and Janus places your clients and jobs and companies in Hamilton County and those surrounding counties. But give us a quick introduction to your employment training program. What does it do?
Okay. Well, essentially, as you very well know, employment is so important to so many people. When you first introduce yourself to somebody, typically one of the first things you talk about is your profession, or you say, what do I do? And people with disabilities find that very important as well. And so we've got a number of different ways of training people. The primary way is through our community employment program. And that program is designed to help people find jobs out in the community. And part of that process is identifying what kinds of skills they have, what kinds of abilities they have, and also combine that with the interests they have. Because the primary objective in this is to find employment that will be long-term, so something that they'll be successful at long-term. And it makes a lot of economic sense, because if you have an employer who hires somebody for a long term, it's much better for them. They don't have all the expenses associated with placing a new employee, and just, you know, the ongoing training and all those different things that are involved with having somebody successfully employed. And so we have employment specialists that work with our people who are trying to find jobs, and they will go through that whole process with them of identifying possible jobs and matching them up with their skills and abilities.
And one of the newest projects taking place at your facility focuses on hydroponics, growing plants and produce with just water. Tell us about that project. It sounds so interesting.
Well, that was something that we started looking into because we wanted to offer another opportunity for our clients to earn income. And we had heard about hydroponics from a gentleman who said, you know, it was really kind of ideal work for people who have disabilities, because you can kind of tailor it to their abilities and different skill levels. And so we've been working, like we've had a partnership with Purdue. They've had students looking at this different project and helping us design the whole growing unit. And we're really trying to, right now we're starting our very first like growing project and seeing what steps actually need to be taken to raise the seeds into healthy plants that can actually then be sold at some point in time. So we're just really kind of trying to learn that whole process, learn about the right levels of nutrients, the right level of lights, and everything that's involved with that.
A lot of learning curve there, I think.
Yes.
And you say that you constantly hear about companies in Indiana looking for good employees. And you say your clients have some really special qualities that make them good employees. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I think one of the things that we've heard from people who are employers who have actually used some of the clients that we work with is they've been so impressed with their dedication, their commitment to the work, and just their ability to like really focus and make sure that they're doing the proper job. And it's just amazing when you have somebody that's so dedicated. We have some people in our community employment program that have actually worked like at one specific place for over 25 years. Wow. And so that's really quite an accomplishment.
That's right. We only have just a few seconds left, but for companies or executives who may see this around the state, what advice would you give them if they're considering for the first time hiring an adult with an intellectual or developmental disability, or maybe they've never considered it? What would you tell them?
I would say be flexible, be open to trying things in a different way, and be creative, because if you're facing like an employee shortage, just look at things a little bit differently and see how you can accomplish things maybe just in a different way, because it'll help you be more successful.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Later in the podcast, the Autonomous Challenge is coming to the Speedway, and our insiders take on the top stories of the week. But now, the Tippecanoe Building Trades Construction Council is teaming with 10 professional trade associations to put on the first ever summer construction camp for anyone 16 years and older in the greater Lafayette area. The camp allows people to spend an 8-hour day working alongside instructors from their trade of choice. Tippecanoe Building Trades President Stephen Snyder talked about the camp in our Eye on Education segment.
There's been a lot made, not only here in Indiana, but around the country, of the shortage of welders, pipe fitters, and skilled tradesmen. Talk about, in the 9-county region in the Lafayette area that you represent, talk about the need, the demand for these types of workers.
Well, I will say, as a professional tradesman myself, a pipe fitter by trade, and the president of the Tippecanoe Building Trades Construction Council, this is the first time going into the holiday seasons with open calls and or open manpower that needs to be put on several different job sites. So this demand I had not seen in 20 plus years.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about this summer construction camp. A new idea. This was the first year for it. How did the idea come about? And then just talk about the camp itself and what all happens.
Sure. So the idea was born just like anything else, out of need. I work real tight with Greater Lafayette Commerce. Kara Webb, I want to give her a shout out. She's a fantastic person. She helped get me motivated, and we just brainstormed an idea, having a construction camp to get that in front of the students to let them know these are viable career paths.
Yeah. We'll talk about these jobs too, welders, pipe fitters. Talk about the types of jobs and careers we're talking about.
Sure. So we're talking about construction, professional construction trades, from pipe fitters, plumbers, carpenters, electricians, boilermakers, cement finishers, painters, et cetera, sheet metal workers. Typically, high-skilled projects, high-skilled wages, and high-skilled demand.
Yeah, you talk about the demand, you talk about the wages, you talk about
Yes.
the careers that you can have here. Is part of it a perception challenge that students, but maybe more importantly, teachers, parents, don't really understand what these careers are all about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can beat students up all day long and say, hey, look here, knucklehead, you need to do this, that, and that. But really, we need to get in front of the teachers, get in front of the parents, and let them know that these are viable, well-paid career paths other than college for the kids.
Talk about the camp itself and what students you had, around 80 or so in this first year. Talk about what the experience was. 6 weeks and no cost, is that right?
Zero cost. We picked up 100% of everything associated. I had 12 different professional trades that participated in this. We took care of all the PP&E, professional protective equipment, for the individuals. We bought them lunch. We brought them in on that day. They could sign up whatever trade they were interested in, spend an entire day with the heavy equipment operators operating equipment, hang out with the best trade of all, which are the plumbers and pipe fitters, and do that fun stuff. Welding, et cetera, et cetera. So it was a great experience to get a hands-on view of the trades.
So based on this first year, which I think you're very encouraged by, you're going to do it again next year. How do you see the opportunities for growth in this camp?
It's at this point it's limitless. We threw this together. I wouldn't say at the 11th hour, but maybe at the 10th hour, with half expectations. Within 2 weeks, it way succeeded our expectations. The community's hungry for it. The city of Lafayette has got involved with me. Other entities have reached out and said, you're doing a great thing. This is awesome. And our phone's been blowing up off a hook.
Yeah, do you think it's already had an impact? I mean, do you think it's
Yes.
already making a difference?
Yes, I don't have the exact numbers and metrics, but traffic to our offices has increased. Our joint apprenticeship training committees has all reported across the board an uptick in people that are interested, and my personal phone has been blown off the hook.
Well, a lot of creative things going on. This is a great example in terms of addressing the talent pipeline. Stephen Snyder is the president of the Tippecanoe Building Trades Construction Council. Thanks for joining us. We'll have you back on to talk about it next year or before.
Sounds good. I appreciate the time.
Right.
Still to come, perspective on a big news week from our panel of insiders. But first, more developments at the Speedway as IMS and Energy Systems Network have announced a 2-year, $1 million prize competition, culminating in a high-speed autonomous vehicle race in October 2021. The race will be held on the famed 2.5-mile oval. IMS President Doug Bowles and Energy Systems Network CEO Paul Mitchell talked about the effort on Inside Indiana Sports.
Paul, start with you. I think this is very interesting. This is an Indiana deal, an Indiana program, this autonomous challenge. Talk about how the idea kind of came about and what it's all about.
Well, it's been a process. We've been working at it for more than a year and a half. And at Energy Systems Network, we're always looking for ways to move the state of the art in terms of innovation. And Indiana's got a long history in automotive technology innovation, and we thought, what better to do than partner with the world's most famous venue in the Indianapolis Motor Speedway to kind of figure out how could we showcase an opportunity around this autonomous vehicle technology that is where so much investment and focus is today within the industry.
And I think it's interesting to note the universities and those who have climbed on board already, some high-profile institutions. Talk about that and some of the folks who've signed on to participate in the challenge.
So, we have more than a dozen letters of interest, but on day one when we announced, there were 5 universities that signed up right away, and these are powerhouses in automotive engineering. Texas Transportation Institute, which is the largest research institute for automotive technology in the country. The Korea Institute for Science and Technology is coming. So this really has the potential to be a global event.
Yeah, and Doug, this culminates with an actual competition, a race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, right?
Yes, so in October 2021, we're going to get to see these universities compete in a race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We're pretty excited about it. You think back 110 years, 1909, Carl Fisher develops the Indianapolis Motor Speedway to test the new technology of the day back then, which was the automobile. We've gotten the rear mirror from that, paved racing surfaces from that relationship. 2002, the safer wall came around. around. And so this is just an opportunity for us to continue that. In 2011, we partnered with ESN, and we had an Emerging Tech Day as part of our 100th anniversary, and this is just sort of the next generation of that. But this one, I think we're going to see applications for years to come in automobiles that we see driving around communities, and it's really going to have some roots in what we're doing together at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Yeah, you talk about off camera, you were talking about this really being in the Speedway's DNA and how that evolved. You looked at having some sort of an international event, and this evolved and kind of made sense.
Well, I'd sort of talked to the team, and we really wanted to be on the front end of this because we know that there are other people out trying to figure out how do you take advantage of the next technology that's coming. It is our DNA. We have an international platform in the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We have brilliant folks in the state of Indiana that can help us put this together, and it's great for our state. Yeah. It's great for the Speedway, but it certainly is all about what's in the central part of our DNA, which is new technology at the Speedway.
Paul, Doug talks about good for the state. As you look at the potential economic development impact, how do you see that?
Well, what we're doing is harnessing the power of prize competitions and the allure of the Speedway to bring the best and brightest minds from around the world that are working in artificial intelligence, machine learning, advanced computing. They're coming to Indiana for 2 years, right? This is the future workforce of our innovation economy here in Indiana, helping them get jobs at current Indiana companies, helping them create companies in the state, and then also just putting this on the map as a hub for innovation for years to come.
And do you see this as helping Indiana really take a leadership position in the whole autonomous vehicle arena? I mean, you look at Cummins doing the work they're doing with driverless trucks, and you can go on down the list, the assets that are already here. This is really adding on to that.
This is certainly a big piece of it, right? And so we've got a nascent industry going on now that needs to grow. If Indiana is going to continue to be a powerhouse in automotive manufacturing and engineering, autonomy has to play a big role in that. Yeah. And this event has the potential to catapult us forward.
Yeah, Doug, I'll give you the final word, but because it's being held, this event, the race, is being held at Indianapolis Motor Speedway with the visuals and what the attention that's going to generate. How do you see that playing in terms of future impact going forward?
Well, the IndyCar Series has already announced that in 2022 they've got a new car, new engine. They're going to do there's going to be some new technology in that. So I think this just fits well with what our whole company is about. And certainly the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is an international platform that everybody knows. It helps us, I think, in alluring those teams, getting them to come to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and be part of this. And I can't wait to be sitting in the grandstands in October watching along with other fans as we see this competition unfold.
Be an interesting visual to be sure. An autonomous car race, actually a 2-year competition, will put Indiana further on the map from a technology standpoint. Paul Mitchell, the CEO at Energy Systems Network, Doug Bowles, president at IMS. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
All right.
And finally, our insiders give perspective on the biggest business stories in Indiana. This week's panel includes Inside Indiana Business Sports contributor Bill Benner, Bose Public Affairs Group Principal Roger Harvey, and Charge founder and president Ken Unger.
I want to get all your kind of initial thoughts on this. I asked you earlier, Bill, but Ken, as you heard the news, and you were a key executive at the Speedway from 96 to 2005, so 9 years. What was your reaction? What'd you think?
That was perfect. It's one of the most successful business people in the world who has domain knowledge of motorsports, buys the largest sports stadium on earth. It was a perfect match.
Yeah. Good, Raj?
I agree with everything Ken said. I would just add, if there's one person out there where this makes the most sense and creates the greatest opportunity for more success down the road, it's Roger Penske. And so it's absolutely terrific, and really looking forward to see what he does.
Yeah, I think generally, Bill, the reaction has been very similar to that. And as you and I talked earlier, there's the economic, there's the business deal to this, but there's also that personal, emotional connection that so many people have to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway that kind of adds to the reaction.
Well, the Speedway, it's Indiana. It goes to the essence of what we are. It's our DNA, motorsports in general, and the Speedway in particular, and the fact that this guy, as Roger said, and Ken, is perfect choice to take over the Speedway, and it also has incredible impact on the city of Indianapolis, the town of Speedway, and the state of Indiana.
I know they've been looking at all kinds of potential outcomes the executive have at the Speedway, but some people thought they would never be sold. Did you think that was the case? You think there was going to be a point where that asset was going to be sold?
Yeah, it just seemed like there would be an inflection point soon, especially with the passing of Mary Hulman George. And I think Tony said it best at the press conference this past week. He said it was time because his family and the team had taken it as far as they thought they could take it.
Yeah, I thought that was good too. And you had mentioned earlier you thought that was Tony's publicly one of his best performances in terms of.
No question about it. And I thought that the emotion that he brought to it, which is understandable, but the emotion, the family connection, the long history, going back to his grandfather, I thought that it really resonated. He was eloquent, and I think he really captured the moment for the family.
Now what's next? Roger, your thoughts. I mean, so early in the process, I don't think the deal will close until maybe the first of the year. But as you look at the potential now of the track and the property that the family owns in and around Speedway, and then the potential impact on Speedway, the town of Speedway, what do you see maybe happening?
Well, a couple things. I think when you look at what happened this week, in addition to the announcement, Roger Penske spent a couple of days here having meetings and walking the property and talking with the leadership team there at the Speedway that he expressed in the news conference he has the utmost confidence in, and they're the right people there. So I think he's going to rely on them to help analyze, okay, where do we need to make the smart strategic investments to take it to the next level, as Tony George said.
Yeah.
And what's nice about it is that Roger Penske has the financial resources to make those significant investments to take it to the next level. So this isn't just talk. There's going to be some reality there. And then you mentioned the town of Speedway. I think this is really important because I believe if you look at Roger's track record over the years, look at what he's done in Detroit with the Grand Prix and how he's invested and really turned that. Basically, he revived that race there in Detroit. And I think when you look at Speedway, the town, I think there's nothing but upside for the town of Speedway and for the businesses in that area because Roger Penske understands the connection between community and being a good corporate citizen as well as owning a track and running a race.
And Ken, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway obviously is a racing venue, but really it's an entertainment venue. So in that light, can you see that the Hulman George family is stepped into entertainment certainly these last number of years? You see that maybe ramping up?
Absolutely. The future is kind of the merger of both technology and entertainment. And it's not only a large sports stadium, it's an entertainment venue. So you're going to see more and more how they leverage that as an entertainment property as opposed to a sports property.
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned earlier, I think this is an opportunity. The Indianapolis 500 will always be, in my view, at a very high level, the Indianapolis 500. But Roger Penske brings the ability to grow the series at a very important time when NBC has come on board and quite honestly, auto racing, both NASCAR and IndyCar, are struggling to maintain their audiences.
And you bring up a good point, too, on growing the series, growing the IndyCar Series. New television contract, got some things in place now that kind of set the stage for that. How do you see that playing out, Ken, and how important do you think it is that the IndyCar Series continue to grow, continue to have some momentum?
Yeah, I think that's the perfect combination, right? So the 500, the IMS is the stage, but IndyCar is the show. And so Roger's the perfect person to kind of take that automotive background. Obviously, he has deep ties in the industry, he understands the technology, but how do you grow the audience of IndyCar? How do you increase the relevance to millennials and Gen Z? I think Roger Penske's in a perfect position to blend automotive, entertainment, motorsports all together.
And the ability to bring a corporate investment, whether it's a presenting sponsor, whatever the case might be, he's probably pretty good at that.
If you're the CEO of a sponsor, you're going to take Roger Penske's call, probably.
Yeah, good stuff. We'll be talking a lot more about this, I know, in the coming weeks. A couple of other big news developments this week in central Indiana and around the state. Westfield continues to grow in Hamilton County. Grand Junction breaking ground, a massive redevelopment project there. Roger, as you look at what's happening in Westfield, a lot of attention goes to the amateur and youth sports movement there, and rightfully so. But there have been some, in addition to some of these big projects, economic development announcements and jobs announcements in recent weeks as well.
Significant announcements coming out of Westfield. I think one of the strategies that the mayor's had up there is as the residential has been continuing to grow, which makes sense as a suburban community, you've got to have that commercial tax base and have significant commercial tax base. And so when you look look at the three major announcements that have happened in the last, I'd say 45 days or so, including Abbott, which is a significant medical device manufacturer, those are exactly the kind of jobs you want to have there. And then with the announcement of Grand Junction, which basically will help develop the downtown area and create a sense of being where the trails all come together, and there'll be an amphitheater, an ice rink. I mean, it really helps with the quality of life. And any mayor in the state will tell you this, you've got to have the quality of life.
Yeah.
You've got to have obviously good schools, which Westfield does, and a safe community. And so that's where Westfield's heading.
And Mayor Andy Cook can thank Mitch Daniels for major moves and the completion of US 31.
Hey, Bill, there's no doubt that 31 project has been a significant asset to Westfield, and they're proud to tell you it's only a matter of minutes to get to 465 on 31.
That's right. So sports, such a huge part of the economy here in Indianapolis, the youth sports up in Westfield. And Ken, I bring this up, and I just thought of this, but you're involved with esports.
Right.
And what an emerging sport industry, if you will, that is. The Pacers obviously
Right.
Pacers gaming. The esports, is that an opportunity for Indianapolis, for Indiana to grow that piece?
Absolutely, and I know that groups in the region are looking at how to leverage esports, because internationally it's gone from $1 billion industry to $1.5 billion in 1 year.
Wow. Bill, Pacers Foundation, with the Pacers Sports and Entertainment. Before that, Pacers game, the NBA. I mean,
the NBA was absolutely out in front of this with the beginning of the NBA 2K League, and I can only imagine where the growth will take and what other sports will do to dovetail on what the NBA has done.
Yeah, and colleges and universities are really not necessarily big institutions. Some are, but trying among them are creating esports arenas, if you will,
Absolutely.
and teams.
They're not only creating teams, but they're creating scholarships, and they're recruiting players to the university based on their esports playership. So you're seeing kind of that follow the exact same pattern as traditional sports.
Yeah.
So once the colleges and universities step in, we're going to see a lot of growth around that.
We will be tuned in to find out what is next on esports, but also the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and what's happening there. A big story this week. I want to thank Bill Benner, Roger Harvey, and Ken Unger, one and all.
That wraps up this week's Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. Remember, you can find all of this week's TV segments, as well as the top business news from throughout the state, at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. While you're there, you can also subscribe to our platform of free e-newsletters. This is Andy Ober for Inside Indiana Business.